Hi, I'm John Vorparian, and this is Beyond the Game. Dan Schlossberg is a good friend of the show. He has written well over 30 baseball books, and today Dan is going to be chatting about pitchers and 300 victories. And to do that, his book is The 300 Club. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Great to be back.
Yeah. So I guess I'll pose the immediate question to you with this 300th club, the 300 Club. Have we seen the last of baseball's 300 game winners?
If you remember seeing Randy Johnson walk off the mound during his 300th win last June, he was the last one you're ever going to see.
Okay, well, that's it for the show. Now, you know, the predictions can go wrong. Come on, Dan. I mean, well, let's talk a little bit about the book itself. You, as a baseball historian, assemble the facts with regards to the biographies of several pitchers. Can you relate who you've got in the book?
Well, sure, John. There are 24 300-game winners in baseball history. 17 of them during the modern era of baseball that began in 1901, and the rest in the 19th century when the rules were very different. Mm-hmm. And I also have a chapter on guys who came close but no cigar. They didn't make 300 wins. And also a chapter, I talked to a lot of people about, is it possible, can anybody pitching now get there? And I got some very interesting answers.
Okay. Now, I would be negligent. Is there any, I would love to ask you about Yankees, Mets, but somehow, I don't know why I want to talk about Atlanta. I just can't put my finger on it. Maybe it's the I can't get to the tie of the things, but
or maybe it's the jersey here too.
Phil Niekro. Can you talk a little bit about that hurler?
He was probably the most unusual, certainly of the 10 living 300-game winners, because I think you and I throw harder than he did. He threw a knuckleball, except in his 300th win, when he only threw one knuckleball. It was the last pitch. And he was pitching for the Yankees at the time. And he threw a knuckleball to Jeff Burroughs to strike him out. That was the last out of his 300th win, which, by the way, was the only complete game shutout for a 300th win in the 20th century or 21st century.
Wow. As to the Cy Young, how does he relate to the 300 Club?
Cy Young's career spanned both the 19th and the 18th and the 19th and 20th centuries. So he started in the 1800s, pitched into the 1900s. As I said, the rules were quite different. The teams were different. Everything was very different when he started than when he ended his career. But he won 511 games because the old-time pitchers worked almost every day. Now, Cy Young also is the only 300-game loser in baseball history. So there's an argument going on, is Cy Young the best pitcher of all time, just because he had the most wins? And should it be the Walter Johnson Award, perhaps? I believe it should be. Mm-hmm. And that the Cy Young Award was named only because he had the most wins, not because he was the best pitcher.
Wow. You mentioned Niekro and the knuckleball. Is there a 300-game winner that has a great curveball or is noted for that?
Really, I would not go into that so much. I mean, Steve Carlton had a great curveball. Tom Seaver did. But there are other guys. Greg Maddux was really known for his changeup. He didn't throw hard either. Tom Glavine, another Brave. In fact, of the 10 living 300-game winners, 5 have Atlantic connections. Niekro, Maddux, Glavine, Gaylord Perry pitched briefly with the Braves, and who got released with 297 wins and then hooked up with Seattle, and Don Sutton, who's been a Braves broadcaster for the last 10 years. So that's why the Braves tie and the Braves jersey.
Okay. Can you go to City Park? I mean,
City Field? Oh,
excuse me.
Sure, yeah? I do. I get booed when I come in because my license plate, New Jersey plate, says Braves won. But that's, I have a good time with the Mets and the Yankees. I really do. I enjoy going to any baseball game.
And I guess you are, you're a man of your word. I noticed that the 300 Club, the forward, who's that done by?
It's done by Wayne Hagan, who's a great broadcaster. He's with the Mets. And Wayne is unusual among broadcasters because he's worked for teams in all 4 time zones, which is hard to do. I mean, the Rockies haven't been around that long in the Rocky Mountain time zone, and the Diamondbacks too. But he's worked for teams in all 4 time zones. He's been on the air for almost 30 years.
Wow. Recently, there was an incident with a New York Yankee going across the pitcher's mound. Would you care to weigh in on that topic?
Going across the pitcher's mound, you'll have to clarify that for me because I don't recall that.
You don't recall hearing about that hot corner position player, Alex Rodriguez?
Oh, Alex Rodriguez, yes. Yes.
Crossing Darrell Brandon's.
Yeah, they had some harsh words, and on Mother's Day when Darrell Brandon pitched that no-hitter, his grandma had a message for Alex Rodriguez. It was 3 words, and the last 2 words were Alex Rodriguez.
Okay. Well, we'll leave that to the viewer's imagination. But more importantly, I'd like to chat with you a little bit more about the 300 Club and some of the, I guess, the interesting points. What's, I would say, the top 3 factoids that surprised even a baseball historian like Dan Schlossberg?
Well, one thing that really struck me was there was 1 year, only 1 year in baseball history, when the 4 biggest winners of all time were all active. That year was 1911, which was the rookie year of Grover Cleveland Alexander. He won 28 games as a rookie that year. And also we had Cy Young, Walter Johnson, and Christy Mathewson all active in the same year. Those were the top 4 winners in baseball history. So that's certainly at the top of my list. Warren Spahn I've got to talk about as another factoid because he won more games than any left-handed pitcher in baseball history. And he won all of them after World War II, which shows how remarkable a pitcher he was with 2013 win seasons. Now, he wound up with 363 wins and 363 base hits. He was a good hitter. Wow. In fact, he had 35 home runs. That's a National League record for a pitcher.
How many did he go for balls? Did he?
No, he hit. He hit. In fact, there's a great trivia question that I'd like to share with your viewers, John. There are only 2 men in the history of the Braves franchise in all 3 cities, Boston, Milwaukee, and Atlanta, who homered in more than 15 consecutive years. Now, the obvious one is Hank Aaron, who I think is the career home run king, despite Barry Bonds. The other one is not Eddie Matthews, who did it in exactly 15 years, or Dale Murphy, who did it in exactly 15 years, but Warren Spahn, who did it in 17 years. He homered in 17 years in a row while wearing a Braves uniform. That's amazing.
Wow.
Another thing about Spahn, real quick, also belongs in the book, and it's in the book. He pitched in 17 All-Star games. That is 5 more than any other pitcher.
Wow. The Braves seem to have good luck with their pitchers. What do you attribute that to?
Good coaching, and it starts in the minor leagues. I mean, Glavine came through the Braves system. Maddox they acquired, but only after doing a lot of scouting and scrutiny on him. They wanted to find out what kind of a character he was. Would he fit into the clubhouse? Well, you know, when they signed Maddox, it was at the winter meetings in '92. And they were considering signing Maddox or Barry Bonds. They were going to put their money on one of those 2 guys. They were both free agents. And they could have had Barry Bonds. They decided to go with Maddox because he had better character. And he really fit into that clubhouse. And he became very close with John Smoltz and also with Tom Glavine.
As a Braves aficionado, what's your take on Hayward?
Hayward's going to be the Rookie of the Year for sure, and probably has some MVPs in his future too. This guy is only 20 years old. It's interesting and ironic that he plays the same position as Hank Aaron, and he's the same age as Hank Aaron was when he broke in, age 20. That's very interesting to me.
Wow.
But I got to tell you a quick Hayward story. I saw him in spring training this year, and I knew he was born in Ridgewood, New Jersey, so that's in the New York metropolitan area, and I happen to live in the next town in Fairlawn, New Jersey, so I said to Jason, were you born in Valley Hospital? And he said, yeah, I was. And I said, did you know that's where Catherine Zeta-Jones had her baby? And he said, who's Catherine Zeta-Jones? So I said, oh, it's Michael Douglas's wife. And he said, who's Michael Douglas? At that point, I gave up.
How long have you been following the Braves?
53 years. It goes back to 1957 when I was 9 years old. The Dodgers and Giants were moving to the West Coast. All my friends rooted for the Yankees, but the Milwaukee Braves beat them in the World Series that year. That was the year of Lou Burdette, and it was a great series.
Wow. Do you think that Boston could ever sustain another team?
I think they probably could, although they tried with the Braves. The Boston Braves left after the 1952 season. They went to Milwaukee, stayed there 13 years, and then went to Atlanta. Boston's a hotbed of baseball, but it's all Red Sox. I mean, the whole city, even when the Boston Braves were there and when they were good, as they were in '48 when they won the National League pennant, everybody rooted for the Red Sox. They're just overshadowed there.
Yeah. Do you participate in fantasy baseball?
I have. Well, actually, I should correct that. I've gone to the fantasy camps. I did the Braves camp and the Cubs camp. Fantasy baseball, I have been asked to be a scout for other people that are involved in it many, many times. Because I go to spring training every year. People want to know who's hurt, who's coming back from an injury, what rookies look good. And I'm going to start charging him my brain pick, John. It's just too much, you know?
Well, speaking about having the opportunity to scout, can you talk a little bit about baseball's draft? And if you can line it up with regards to the Braves versus, let's say, the football draft. Are they similar, or is there a big difference in trying to select a future baseball player?
I think baseball is harder. In football, players tend to come more directly out of college and they go right into the pro ranks. But in baseball, you have that huge minor league system, and some of these guys take a long time to make it, even if they're #1 draft picks. For example, Steven Strasburg this year. He didn't go directly to Washington, even though Washington was a last-place team hoping to get better right away. They sent him down so they know that he's ready, and he's already been on several different levels of the minor leagues and doing very well, so I think he'll be promoted quickly. But a lot of these guys take years to reach the major leagues.
Where do you think baseball will go next if baseball chooses to expand?
I'd like to see them come to northern New Jersey, which is the biggest untapped market. I know they have to get permission from the Mets and the Yankees, but the New York population base is really 15 million. It's just huge. So that would be my #1 choice. If Hurricane Katrina hadn't come to New Orleans, I would say New Orleans is the logical market. But with the summer being so hot and humid and wet, and with hurricanes a factor, I'm not sure about that. Vancouver, British Columbia has a beautiful ballpark, BC Place. So that would be another possible place to go too. But there are teams, active teams, that might want to relocate also. For example, in Florida, you have 2 teams, and I think that state can only sustain 1 team. And unless the Tampa Bay Rays get a new ballpark, I wonder about the future of the franchise. The Marlins are already supposed to be getting a new ballpark in South Florida. So the Rays might be a team that might consider some future relocation.
With regards to the 300 Club, is there a way that you watch a ball game? Are you just looking at the pitchers?
I'm always looking at the pitchers. And as a fan who grew up in the 50s and the 60s, baseball is so different, and that's why we're not going to have any more 300-game winners. When I grew up, pitchers took pride in pitching every 4 days, you know, with 3 days of rest, sometimes even less than 3 days of rest. Ferguson Jenkins, one of the guys who came close to 300 but didn't make it, told me that he would pitch on Sunday, Thursday, no, I'm sorry, he'd pitch on Monday, Thursday, and Sunday. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, these guys, Bob Feller told me the same thing. He took pride in pitching complete games. Robin Roberts, the late Robin Roberts, told me also. I was fortunate enough to interview him before he passed away. So pitching is so different. So these guys pitched in 4-man rotations. They didn't have any pitch counts, or very few pitch counts. There were no team trainers or doctors to worry about. Pitching was different. There wasn't relief pitching, that specialty of relief pitching with a guy for the 7th inning, a guy for the 8th, a guy for the 9th. There were no closers. They weren't even called closers. Few teams had relief pitchers. So pitching was very different. And in fact, the guys in my book who pitched during the 19th century, they would pitch virtually every day. They would pitch 90% or more of their team's games. There were no pitching staffs. There were no telephones. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone in 1876. There was no way to call the bullpen that year.
Did you get to talk with any of the catchers, the field generals, so to speak, with regards to pitching?
Yeah, I did. I talked to Jeff Torborg, a good friend of mine who was a manager of the Mets for a while, and other teams, White Sox and Indians. And it was very interesting to talk to those people and pitching coaches and managers. I talked to Dallas Green about Steve Carlton, for example. So yes, I did talk to other people besides pitchers.
Oh.